Are you the spokesperson?
Oh no, I don't think that was what was happening at all. I think we were all
we always
pointing at
just
each
always
other.
defer to each other. Like,
Yeah.
you want to take this?
Yeah.
I'll start it. Why not? So yeah, this is our 15th year. We all met initially through San Francisco State, primarily. We all went there at different times, but overall the same time. And we all were in a sketch comedy group together called Totally False People. And the first festival came out of trying to find a place to perform. There was a couple like small little venues that had like beams in the middle of the room and stuff. There wasn't a lot of great theater space that you could get for a night. You'd have to rent it for a while, and doing sketch on like a comedy club stage was confusing to audience that weren't used to, you know, things that weren't punchline, set up punchline. So we banded together with, was it 5 other troops, rented the Shelton Theater in Union Square for a month and did 3 weekends or 4 weekends of shows with 2 groups headlining a night, and then a cabaret style the last week where everybody did shorter sets, and called it a festival to have an angle for it really. And back when like print was really effective, the Chronicle ran a front page story in the Thursday date book on it, and then people came out. We sold pretty much the whole run out, and realized that we might have something.
And that was in school or after you guys had finished?
It was after school.
After school.
Yeah. Cole and I met as 18-year-olds in the dorms at SF State, and then we were roommates for years. We used to work at a video store, and we were just movie comedy nerds. And then we met Janet through a friend, and this friend, we were starting the sketch comedy groups. That's sort of how we all fell together.
Yeah, there were a bunch of people at the beginning. There were like twice as many people.
And we met you in this building, in the Castro.
Yeah.
Because there was a screening of Talking Heads Stop Making Sense. They had all the Talking Heads reunited there, and that's where we first met you.
Jonathan Demme was sitting like directly in front of me, and I remember wishing that I would have started a comedy group with him.
Were you guys scared to talk to Janet at first?
We were so intimidated.
Oh my God! No one has ever felt that way in the history of time.
But we were all, we all grew up on this kind of comedy. Like, we grew up watching Saturday Night Live, Monty Python. Kids in the Hall was huge for us. And so we were just these kids right out of college trying to write sketches, trying to get on stage. We had a 4th member, Gabriel Diani, and we did a few things. We got to go to the HBO Comedy Arts Festival in Aspen, and that just by wanting to perform in that group, that led to us creating this festival, which we didn't even realize would have a second year. It was just, let's just do this 1 year, let's just see what happens, and then it took off from there. It's still trial by error, and 15 years of not knowing what we're doing and trying to figure it out at the same time. I mean, my background, in college I studied theater, so I had a little bit of experience with learning how to put on a show, and not only from just the performance standpoint, but directing, writing, producing, light, sound, marketing, just on a very, very small level, like just at college. Like, okay, we're putting on a show, we have to do everything ourselves. And so taking that experience and applying it to starting a festival, but when we started, we really didn't know anything beyond that. And so we've had to learn as we go and just sort of teach ourselves how to be business people.
I'm assuming you bootstrapped it. You didn't
Totally.
have
completely.
VC money or
No, we
We've
never have.
had any investments, anything.
We've
like
had
that.
we get a stray amount of sponsor money periodically, but nothing massive. And it's just like we rely on ticket sales in order to put this thing on. And so thank God people come out. But every year, we learn new things every year. And early on, I would say we had some help, and some like Tom Sawyer, who used to own Cobb's our second year, kind of helped out a bit, and things like just kind of people trying to help us with the scene and stuff. But I think we got lucky in a sense that we came at it from 2 sides. One, being performers, we wanted it to be a great experience for other performers, and 2, I think we all 3 have pretty good business minds, and like we're very organized, and I think those 2 things together have made it succeed. Because I know that as performers, like Janet and I have gone to a lot of different festivals with our Empire Group Theme Park and other stuff too, and our podcasts and stuff. And like, it's really hard to click off the producer hat when we go there, because we're just studying how they do it and taking cues from like, oh, this stuff was great, oh, this stuff was terrible, and like applying that towards us as well too. And I could say that one of the greatest things for us is that year after year the performers say how like stoked they were and how well organized everything was, that the rides were there, that they knew exactly where they needed to be and when, and all sorts of stuff that other festivals we've been to, it's just like no one knows when and where anybody's supposed to be and stuff. So I think it's a good combination of us trying to make sure it's a great experience for the performers, but also for the audiences and for everybody working for us and everybody at all the venues and stuff. Just trying to make sure everybody's satisfied and not letting one side of it get like trump the other side.
Any thoughts, Janet?
No, I think that it is. I think that there are creative people who have difficulty being professional, and there are professional people who have difficulty sort of opening up the creative side. And I think that these two knew each other very well, but whether we knew it or not, we have a really nice combination of both. And I guess I will pat us on the back a little bit and say I don't know how common that is. I mean, I know a ton of people who are like that because of what I do for a living, but I think that's something that can be more of a challenge than maybe we even realize, because we just got really lucky with each other and our sensibilities. I mean, I was working as a project manager for an interior design firm, and then a buyer and merchandise manager for like a store in Pacific Heights, and that was not, and I was in a band. I wasn't doing anything acting related, and I had never done comedy before. So I don't know if you guys know this, but almost every time I get interviewed about how I started in comedy, I'm like, oh, I wouldn't have a career if it weren't for David Owen and Cole Stratton. Like, I just wouldn't, because they had to coax me into doing the sketch comedy group.
Well,
I was like,
likewise,
I don't do that. I don't do comedy. I've never taken improv. I've never written sketch. I don't know how to do this. And had they not believed in me so much and, kept pushing me forward and saying, you should write more, you should perform more, you should do this more, I honestly don't know where I would be. I wouldn't have the same life, I don't think.
Yeah, that's actually really fascinating, because you think that, I'm a huge fan of comedy, and I listen to comics talk a lot about it, and some of them are like, oh yeah, I was the cut up in third grade, and then like something you just kind of stumble upon, you're really funny and you have good timing, and I was like, how does that happen? How do you develop that? What are your personal stories in terms of finding out that you had a comedy gene? It's this very specific type of thing.
Well, I'll start, because I always go back to like third grade. I was the nerdy little kid in third grade that was trying to organize the entire class to do a stage version of the Blues Brothers, and I'd actually sat in front of the TV with the VHS on and hand wrote the script.
So you, it really is.
So like I was like, pause,
snapshot
write
of
a line, play, pause, write a line. So I wrote a script for the Blues Brothers, and I cast my whole cast in it, and I convinced the teacher to let us rehearse in the morning, and then we never actually did the show, but
Just couldn't get the funding.
we couldn't get the funding. No.
Eyeballs.
And
Did you do Spies Like Us as well?
we did Spies Like Us
You're
too.
just on the Aykroyd kick.
I did do that.
Well, both of those movies are made to be a play.
I was just But I was just a huge comedy fan, and I was acting that out in my life. But what I was really doing is what I was producing.
Yeah.
Because you do produce
Yeah.
other festivals.
I work for
Bonnaroo.
Bonnaroo. I do their cinema tent, and we've all done some things for Outside Lands. And I used to work for a bunch of film festivals, just managing their operations. But through putting on those plays as a kid and doing the talent shows, and then later on doing sketches with these guys, while I enjoyed performing, and I was always, enjoyed being a class clown kind of kid, what I really liked was producing. And that's what I stopped performing. I don't perform anymore. And because I realized, oh, I actually like this better. And I think I'm good at this, and I'm not really interested in that. So that's what I do. And so that sort of led, that all this stuff about performing, initially that was the goal. But then the producing became so fulfilling and interesting to me that now that's my goal, is to do that better. So
I want to shift the focus a little bit to, I guess, like personality traits. I always think it's fascinating. We need to talk about this a little bit. Just, I think the fact that you're good at improv and you're good at improvising kind of makes you a more flexible person. You can look at your surroundings and you can kind of adapt and you can see things in an interesting way. But I think, making the connection between entrepreneurship and, acting or improvising or comedy, what are some of the character qualities or personality traits that you think have made you successful in terms of being able to stick with something and grow it, and just kind of do what you do, because it's not simple. It's not for the faint of heart. It's all of these things that you guys have chosen to do are challenging, and I'm sure you face challenges. So talk a little bit about that for anyone who's listening that wants to start their business or be an actor or a comedian.
Well, I will say the lack of comfort with conflict turns you into a tireless optimist. So, like, I would so much rather feel like something's going to be okay than it's not. And I don't know if that's what makes an optimist versus a pessimist, but if I'm going to assume something's going in a certain direction, it just feels better and safer to assume it's going to be okay. And I have only recently started thinking about that, because people, when I talk to people and they call me ambitious, I always bristle at that. I just don't, not to say I don't appreciate ambition, I've just never thought of myself as an ambitious person. And then when it's sort of projected back to me, like, well, you do this, whatever, I think, oh, okay, I guess that is ambition, but is it one of those terms that you would never ascribe to yourself? It's something that people only see from the outside. Like, does someone, you know what I mean? Does J.J. Abrams know he's ambitious, or does he just think he's doing what he knows how to do? Or,
because it's weird if you're like,
or what am I going to do? Stop or pull back or not try to push forward? But I don't like lie awake at night trying to think of ways to make my career better, you know? But I do think that that having that optimism, like, well, I'm just going to assume that this is going to be okay and work as hard as I can to make sure that happens, opposed to sort of constantly focusing on the dangers of something, I would be crippled by that, I think. And that's a very emotional response, but it is a personality trait that I think has kind of come in handy, especially with acting.
Yeah, you really can't be scared of much or think that things are going to go wrong.
Or assume that things aren't going well because it's a reflection of your value, right. You know?
I think just, being confident and remaining calm when things are not going well, and just coming together to work the problem and find a solution. And I think one of the smartest things that we've done is try and keep great people around us. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's just the three of us year round, but we have no employees. All of our staff are independent contractors who come on just for the festival, but we've been really lucky to get people to come back year after year. And so they know the festival. They get to know how it works and the different quirks and the different how people are and how the venues are. So that's been really helpful for us, is to be able to retain some of our staff. For me personally, I think counting Sketchfest and Mill Valley Film Festival, San Francisco Film Festival, Bonnaroo, Outside Lands, I used to do Stanford Jazz Festival. If I count them up, it's probably over 50 festivals that I've done over the last, since I was 24 years old. And so I've seen almost everything go wrong. And so I've sort of trained myself to know what not to do, just from experience of having done all these festivals. When I start to see this thing happen over here, I say, okay, if we have to address this, we have to address that. So I think probably my biggest trait on that is like try to be obsessively detail oriented, and I'm also a workaholic. So I'm just constantly thinking about the details and trying to just make sure that we've covered all of the bases that we need to cover. And I think that's just come through experience, and also that's just the way my brain's been wired since I was a kid, of just trying to get everything done that needs to get done.
Since third grade specifically.
Pretty much, yeah. But prior to that, I was a mess.
Yeah, I mean, I will definitely say that, like, Dave's point about having good people around us is huge. That, we're 15 years in, and it's not at a point, and I don't know if it'll ever be at a point that we're like, we're the producers. We just walk in and, like, sit down and watch a show and have a good time. It's like we're working hard constantly, and, like, even though we're not driving the talent to the airport personally anymore like we used to do all the time, and then go and run a box office and then, whatever, like, we're still wearing a ton of hats, just not as many hats as we used to have to wear. I'm still, like, making wine runs, and, I do a good portion of the graphic design for the festival, that kind of stuff. Like, we all still do a lot of practical things that could be outsourced, but, I think it also keeps us connected to it, to be, more hands-on with it as much as possible. And I think that we've learned how to work together over these 15 years. We've always been able to, there's ups and downs as anything can be, but, like, I think earlier on when something would go wrong, it was a little more about like whose fault is that kind of thing. And now it's more about that happened. We're going to screw up sometimes. There's just too much that we're like trying to do, and something slips by the thing, or there's a miscommunication or whatever, and something ends up costing us more than it should or whatever, or something gets missed because of a detail. And instead of screaming at that person or that whatever, getting mad, not that you'd scream, but you know what I mean? Instead of being like, that's your fault, we just go, okay, what's the next step? How do we fix it? How do we put this fire out? And then we don't worry about like making sure that somebody takes the blame or whatever. It's more about, let's just get it done. Like, this is a giant, our festival is going to learn to drive next year. Like, it's been around for a while now. So, like,
it'd be so great if self-driving cars became official by next year.
I know, it'd be great.
Be like, it did learn how to drive. All of our cars,
That would be nice. So I think, we've just learned to work together very well and work with the people that work with us, and get a good core staff there and stuff. And I think we're all patient too, like more so than we used to be, and I think that's huge. That sometimes you get answers really quick on things, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you just gotta wait things out, or just be patient with each other as we try to get things done. And it can be frustrating sometimes, but I think we've just really learned to work together, and we know each other's personalities now, and it works pretty nicely.
Yeah, I think like even when I think about like our company, and it's only 5 years old, but it's, you work with people that you like, you stay involved and connected to the day-to-day. I think that there's this misconception that like when you get to a certain point in building a company, you're like, oh, I can just outsource everything and I'm out. That's what, if you're passionate about it, the audience can feel it, people can feel it, and the second that I think the originators, you look at any big company, I think that has good relationships with their customers and makes really great products, it's because the leaders are still there on some level, because it's infused with their vision. And I think you can feel that a difference between something that doesn't have that injection of passion and leadership and something that does. So, and
I think our reputation and our image means so much to all of us that like sometimes I think we do get scared to like delegate things because we really want it to go what the vision is we have in our minds, and for it to be perfect. And sometimes it takes a lot of trust for us to let certain things go and just trust that they'll be done. And most of the time they do, and then we go, oh, why did we hold on to that so tightly for so long? And I think that's a thing that we're going to keep getting accustomed to as we grow and get bigger every year and stuff, to being able to trust other people outside of the three of us to do certain important things. And we're getting better at that too. But I think as long as it's still our festival and we're in charge of it, like, it's going to have our fingerprints all over it every year.
Yeah, like one question really is like, it's in the front of my mind when you're talking about this, which is how has technology changed the festival? So, I mean, besides obviously social media and, you can take selfies from stage and promote it differently. Tell me a little bit about that and how you guys are managing all that.
Did we have cell phones when it started? Because I didn't even have a cell phone.
No.
I think I remember when I got one, it was like pretty, I feel like I got one and it was a big deal.
I remember there was a lot more printing of things, paper, like printers and papers, and now the three of us send thousands of emails to each other because we live in different cities. We don't have an office. So we're constantly emailing each other all year round.
You're a virtual company.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, for sure.
And everything's in databases and spreadsheets and online. We have online things. Everything's in a cloud somewhere. There's no, and so that's changed a lot. It didn't
we used to sit around
a
giant board with a calendar and like put stick-ups, like things up on the board.
Post-its,
Post-its. Let's put kids in the hall here. We'll put this thing there, and like a lot of that, like literally sitting and looking at it in person.
People used to send us VHS tapes and DVDs, but now it's all digital. Now they just send us links.
And that's more recent, even.
I'd say like the last 2 years we
finally realized like, we can just tell people we won't take anything but this, and we'll be okay. Someone will make it work. Everyone can do this now.
Yeah, I don't think there's a single person, because we get hundreds of applications to people that want to come to the festival. I don't think this year especially.
That want to be in it.
Yeah,
that apply to be in it.
Because we book a lot of headliners and stuff ourselves, but like we're not going to know about this 2-person Chicago improv group unless they say, hey, know about us. So we open it up to them, And I don't think there's a single person that wrote and said, hey, I really want to do your festival, but I only have an 8-track of my act. Can I send it in? Like, everybody's online now, and it makes it so much easier. And I will say that, like, thank God the technology got better, because it made it so we could produce it remotely. And we have people that work for us that are like, I'm in South Africa right now.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right. Some of our team is all over the place, doing other things in other places and working part-time on the festival as we get ready to open, and they're everywhere.
Our festival
Which is
manager
great.
lives in Portland.
Yeah.
And he just comes down because you can pretty much do it anywhere now.
Yeah.
I live here, so I do like some venue meetings and stuff, and some sponsor meetings, and I visit hotels and stuff just because I happen to live here. But pretty much all the other work of the festival can be done sitting on a computer. So I spend way too much time sitting on my bed with my computer on my lap.
I wonder too if it's kind of like the American Idol concept. If you're discovering more talent, or there's more talent than there used to be in the sense of applications and things coming through the door because of that kind of democratization aspect. Do you get more inbound than you used to?
Yeah, I'd say every year we get more and more applications, and we divide them up, we look at them, and get a couple second set eyes and stuff, and make decisions together about who we want to invite to do stuff. And thankfully, I don't think we ever lost track of the fact that we started as performers in a small group.
Oh yeah, man, we can't. That's the hard. In some ways, that's the hardest part about looking at those submissions, because you just know what it feels like to be on the other end, kind of crossing your fingers and going, is this material good enough? Is the audio good enough? Is the visual quality good enough? Is this going to translate? How do you capture comedy on camera from back, this when the camera is 50 feet from the stage or whatever? It's tough.
We've been there. We've applied to festivals.
Yeah.
We played, other than Aspen, we played the Seattle Sketchfest, and so it's really important for us for some young sketch group right out of college to have an opportunity to perform.
We have the scope of the festival that's huge. We have hundreds and hundreds of performers, like 700 performers this year or something, these big headliners like Billy Crystal and Ellen Arkin, people like that. We still have a ton of emerging performers that we have these parties after the shows that they're all in the same room. We're
Your
not
badge looks like anybody else's badge. Alan Arkin's badge looks exactly the same as somebody who's, an 18-year-old kid from a college in Seattle.
Yeah, we're not like headliner party over here,
Yeah.
emerges over here. Everybody's in the same room, hanging out and mingling, and I think it's
nice
inspired.
sense of community, and it's
Yeah.
not elitist. We've never been a snobby festival.
It's inclusive.
It's
like,
inclusive,
You can feel that
yeah.
in the whole way that you guys kind of manage it. I don't know. You can feel that. So, I think
That's
that's a
good. Yeah.
compliment.
Well,
Because
thank
in
you.
a lot of these things, it doesn't feel like that.
Yeah.
You're like, you can sit here, and it's just like,
I've worked for those festivals, and
Yeah.
I've seen how ugly it is. This sort of snobbery of this section's for the VIPs, and the stars, and you go over there.
Yeah.
We're not like that, and Fred Armisen told a journalist that it was like coming to summer camp. It's just they feel they get to hang out with their friends, and there's no pressure they're not auditioning in LA. It's not an industry show. It's not full of agents and managers and executives from television. It's full of fans. It's full of comedy fans. The shows, so they don't feel that pressure. They just feel like they can experiment. They can try something new. They can just have fun.
And speaking of industry and stuff, they do come and we'll comp them into shows with emerging talent on it if they want to scout it. People get meetings and get signed and stuff, but we make them buy tickets to the headliner shows. It's foremost about the fans, coming in, being there for the performers and them having a good time. And I will say it's funny, sometimes we'll have people that are like, hey, I'd love to meet you guys. Can we just swing by the Sketchfest offices sometime in March or something? And we're like, there's no Sketchfest
If you don't mind
offices.
me in my pajamas.
Yeah, exactly. It was so funny when Sheila emailed me today. She's like, "Is this going to be on film?" And I said, "No, I'm going to tape it." So basically, they can wear their pajamas if they want. It's totally cool.
I wore my pajamas
casual,
onto this. So.
Right.
We started noticing that people would come up to us, and the three of us, because we're so kind of ubiquitous at the shows at the festival, and just say thank you for Sketchfest. Thank you for doing this every year. This is what I look forward to every year in terms of my live entertainment, and almost sometimes puzzled, I don't know why you guys keep doing it other than I'm going to keep coming, and just a sort of, how did this happen? How did you end up bringing all of my favorite comedy? Because we do sort of cater to our sensibilities, which happens to be, this huge cross-section of San Franciscans who appreciate the same kind of comedy that we do, and that was very moving. That was very moving on a whole new level. I think it was wonderful to have people like Bob Odenkirk and David Cross say, we'll always come if we possibly can, because we love what you're doing. That meant so much. The ticket sales obviously make it possible for us to do it, but when we started realizing that people recognized us as the three people who were doing it and giving us that personal thanks and that one-on-one thanks, it really is just, it's quite wonderful.
But we'll
really
get
means a lot.
like sometimes if we're opening at the festival or we're doing a big show at the cast or whatever, we get, we go up and introduce ourselves as the founders, and we get like a really nice, like warm ovation. And
that just wouldn't happen in LA. In LA, they'd be like, yeah.
But it's like we're not,
throw a tomato.
We're not getting the like Price Waterhouse accountants welcome at the Oscars. Like, oh, here come those guys. You're like the boring guys from church. Like I really do feel appreciated by our audiences, which is great.
I think if you want to throw in another term, I don't feel like, whereas with some industry there's a sense of entitlement, right? That doesn't exist in San Francisco. The audiences don't seem entitled. The performers don't act entitled. Nobody comes to this table in these rooms feeling they're owed something, and I think that that's actually more rare than it should be.
Yeah, I mean that's good to hear, because I'm in a different industry, so it doesn't feel like that in my industry. It's nice to hear that it does exist in San Francisco, but I clearly need to get out more. Did you guys, this is like a two-part question. So the first part is, have you had a moment where the three of you are like, oh my God, we totally did this, and this just feels like we went to this level? So question number one. And then the second part of that is, what's SF Sketchfest in 5 years, 8 years, 10 years? Do you have some sort of like crazy vision? So we'll start there.
I think every single year we've had moments like that. The first question.
For sure.
You know, the first year we were like, oh my God, all the shows sold out.
Yeah.
Let's do it again. And the second year was, oh my God, Fred Willard is coming.
Yeah.
And then, oh my God, Bruce McCullough, one of the kids in the hall is coming. And that led to 5 kids in the hall coming. 2 guys from the state are coming. And then we got all of the states. So every year there's been like just pinch me moments of, I just met Gene Wilder. Mm-hmm. We have Alan Arkin and Billy Crystal in our festival. There's Robin Williams, Yeah. And so there's that little kind of the comedy nerd kids meeting their heroes, but also the feedback that we get of, from the like young performer who just said, oh my God, I just met my hero. And I just met an agent, and we've had people get discovered and go on, and so that's whenever we hear stuff like that, it's really gratifying, and there's it's like a real big kind of like, we still can't believe it that we get some of the people that we get, and that people seem to like it so much.
Yeah, I think every year there's definitely pitch me moments. I think the one that stands out to me out of all of them is seeing all 5 kids in the hall on stage at once, because we took our name Totally False People from the Kids in the Hall 2000 tour booklet. There's a line in Mark McKinney's bio that reads, rumors that he was gay, totally false people, led to whatever. Like, we pulled those words out of that, and they were very inspirational to us coming out as these fledgling sketch comedians. And then just the fact that like we had them all there. We had a suite at some hotel for them, and afterwards we went up and hung out with them and stuff, and we're looking out on the city from like high up at the suite and being like, how did this happen? And then have since become friends with many of them, and it's just, that's bizarre to me. But every year there's things like that, and there's just little moments peppered throughout personally that, like I remember in year like 3, Colin Hay from Men at Work was a musical guest on Paul F. Tompkins' show, and I had to drive him back to his hotel to get something. And he was playing like 2 songs on the show, and I was like, "Oh, do you know what you're gonna play yet?" And he's like, "I haven't figured that out." I was like, "Would you play Overkill?" And he's like, "Yeah, all right, I'll play that." And then sitting back and just standing back there and watching him play acoustically Overkill, which is my favorite Men at Work song, and being like, "I influenced 50% of this set list."
Playing it for you, probably.
Right, but just that moment was just like, "Oh wow, this is really okay." Cool. Like, there's been things like that every year.
That backfired on me one time because Tom Brousseau, who's one of my favorite musicians, was doing a show, and right before the show, I said, "Oh, do you think you could do that one song? I forget the name of it. You Don't Know My Friends, I think it's called. Do you think you could play that?" He's like, "Oh yeah." And then during the show, he starts playing it, and then he's like, messes it up and forgets. He's like, I haven't played that song in a really long time, and I was trying to do it because someone went, I'm really sorry, I don't know that. Awkward. And afterward, I was like, you didn't have to do that for me.
Oops.
Yeah, no, I definitely have those. The one that was like the most emotional for me was very specific, and it happened here, which was that these guys know why it was. There was a reason that it sort of peaked and that everything kind of came out of me through my eyes, which was that we had Bud Court here at the Castro for Harold and Maude, which was like many people in the decade since the movie came out, it was just a seminal film for me when I was in high school. I felt, it was one of those movies that for whatever reason you're like, they made this for me. And so we had brought Bud Court out, and it was a challenging process. But when we finally got the movie started at the Castro, so much of the movie was filmed in the Bay Area, and the first strains of Cat Stevens started, and the theater was full, and that was a very intense moment for me, where I thought, oh my God, this is just, I think those moments where it doesn't have to be you that creates the art, but as a producer, what is, I think, so exciting and satisfying about it is that there is this kind of moment of, oh my God, all of these people who are enjoying this with me wouldn't be here if I hadn't done this. And I don't mean that in like a power hungry way. It just feels, it's so gratifying to feel like not only do I get to have this experience and my friends get to have this experience, but all of these people I don't know are having this experience with me. And that's, that's an amazing feeling. It's very humbling. So yeah, that was a big one for me.
Yeah, it's great to experience it with, here at the Castro with 1,400 people, and the actual creators of the work right there.
Yeah.
Like a week ago, I sat right behind Christopher Guest, Parker Posey, Fred Willard.
Hold on one sec. Hey guys.
Hello.
Oh.
Hey.
We're doing
like an audio interview, so like we just need like 10 more minutes. You guys, that's cool. If you want to be in the interview, you can come up. But yeah, just like 10 minutes. Thank you. Sorry. Christopher Guest.
Oh yeah, so a week ago sat behind, here in the Castro with 1,400 people here, sat behind Christopher Guest, Fred Willard, Parker Posey, and Bob Balaban, all watching themselves in Waiting for Guffman, and the entire audience just in stitches, just howling, including them, and they had that experience. They hadn't had that experience in like 15 years of sitting and watching it with an audience, and all of them were thrilled, and the audience was thrilled, and I was just beaming, just like, oh wow, look, this is cool. Look what this is a great thing.
And I will say, on the flip side of that, as much awesome as that is, when something's not going well, you die 1,000 deaths. Standing
Absolutely.
at the back
Take
of the
personal
thing.
responsibility for it. Absolutely.
And sometimes it's just like there's a weird tech issue or something or whatever. Those are the things that are frustrating. But sometimes it just doesn't play. Like they're off that night or something, or it just doesn't mesh with the people that came and stuff. The bit is tanking or whatever. But you're like, no, it's funny. People, come on. Like there are those moments occasionally. They're fewer and farther between. I find nowadays. I think we've done pretty good at booking stuff that plays well, but there are those moments of being like, but I'm a proud dad, please.
Yeah.
Sometimes the kid's gonna swing and miss a baseball, but
anything I've ever been to is great. I don't think I've been to any of those moments, so if that means anything, I've been to like 6 things.
It does. We'll take it.
And we're also very careful when we program, because there's other places, we banner festivals or whatever, that like just book a lot of they'll kind of take anybody who applies or whatever, and all it takes is an audience coming and seeing one bad show. They might come one more time. If that's bad, they're done. They never come back. Mm-hmm. So we're very careful about trying to really curate it with stuff that we know is funny, at least in our minds, or interesting or something, so that way we don't get complaints or people walking out or that kind of stuff.
Yeah, not everything's for everybody, and you can't please everybody with every show. So that's why we focus on a lot of variety,
Yeah, I think the other part of it that I've noticed too, it's not just all about kind of the stand-up. It's the thing with Alan Arkin was amazing. Like what I got out of it was so not. Of course he says funny things and the movie is funny and everything, but he's really like a very deep character and soul, and they walk away from that and just, I'm so inspired by this person,
Yeah.
That was something I wasn't actually expecting from the experience, and that was like, okay, I'm definitely coming back if that's what I'm going to get out of it.
Yeah, that's how the Penn and Teller tribute was last year. I walked away from that tribute feeling like I had taken a 6-week course in philosophy in one night. just because of the brains, the minds, and the opinions and the ideas that were expressed. It was fantastic.
Yeah, a lot of my favorite moments of the last 15 years, sure, a lot of them are me laughing really, really hard, but a lot of them are me watching a musician we love, because we started to like incorporate, actors and musicians into people that aren't just stand up, joke, but we've been able to see, we've had David Byrne here and Gordon Gano from the Violent Femmes, and Cole mentioned Colin Hay. We've had all these musical heroes too, and just sitting there watching them as part of a comedy show do a song, not a funny song, but just do some great song that we love. Those are some of the best moments for us. And or Alan Arkin, or somebody like John Lurie, or somebody that can move an audience just with their art. Yeah. And if it's not funny, that's okay. It's
fine,
still
yeah.
it's still a good vibe, and we're trying to be like a good vibe festival, and not just like how many laughs can you pack into 90 minutes. But
that's a good tagline, by the way.
Yeah.
The Good Vibe Festival.
Good vibe festival, yeah.
And
Not
I will
just
say,
about the laughs.
from a producer standpoint, one of the other moments that I'm sure for all three of us stood out is like, wow, we did this, was the Wet Hot American Summer live read that we did, where we reunited the good portion of the original cast, but then had very famous guest understudies like David Cross and Bobcat Goldthwait and Busy Phillips like do the other part, but unannounced. They would just pop out and do it. And it was only in like a 560 seat theater. We probably could have gone a lot bigger if we wanted to, but it kind of made it more special that it was fairly intimate. And I think it was Michael Showalter who said something backstage of like, if you realize that if like a bomb went off backstage, the toll it would take on comedy because of the sheer amount of people that were there for it. Like, so there are moments like that where we're like, how did we do that?
They credited that event with sort of sparking them doing the Wet Hot American Summer Netflix series. Like they all got together and like, oh, let's get the band back together.
Yeah.
So cool.
And they did a reading of a script they'd had sitting around for a while, and that became a movie a year later called They Came Together. And it all just sort of happened, and they've said that in print. It's like, oh, it started at Sketchfest. Like, that's why we got back together and
So
did
like
this.
those little inspiration seeds.
I know,
planting
like,
them everywhere.
and so
Amazing.
when I read that, when I read them say that in print, I was like, oh my God, because you came to our festival, you did that? Wow.
It's almost like in those movies when there's like kids that are applying to get their parents back together, but sometimes it works.
Once in a while.
Yep.
Sometimes we do shows just for ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we hope that a small audience of people in the Bay Area will know that particular show or performer that we want to celebrate. And mostly they do. There's sometimes it's sort of more of a cult classic kind of thing that connected with one of us, and we'll just go out and say, okay, look, we're going to do this event just because we believe in it. And it might not make money, it might break even, but afterwards we go, okay, well, we did it. I'm glad we did it because that was an important part of my childhood, was that show or something. So.
And we don't fight each other on it anymore. Like if somebody's really passionate about something, we go, okay, if you can keep it affordable,
Right.
go for it.
Yeah.
Like we just kind of indulge each other now because we're doing 220 something shows. It's like, can I have one or two that I'm not sure about, guys? Like,
Yeah.
and then we're all kind of like, okay, as long as it's not a ridiculous risk, like why not? And I think it most
They
of the
won't
time
let me
pays
do the
off.
Schindler's List reunion though. They keep fighting me on that.
Too soon.
Too soon. Okay.
As soon as I get Lorenzo's Oil the musical off the ground,
That's gonna be
we'll be all right.
I still remember some of the lyrics from that. I am a huge introvert, so I have to be alone a lot, and this is a very social endeavor, and the rest of the work that I do is very social. So that's, I think, a huge thing for me, and it took me a long time to kind of figure out and accept that and be okay with it. That I have friends who will shoot a movie all day and then they need to go out to a restaurant or a bar afterwards with either a whole set of other people or those same people, and that's how they decompress. And unfortunately, I just don't have that. So I have to really totally unplug, which is also a very boring answer. So my version of softball is riding my bike by myself, soulfully up very incredible hills, both here and in LA. Yeah, but I think that's something that has been I'm just incredibly grateful to do. This is the most cliche answer in the world, but to get to do what I love for a living is, I don't feel like I need to escape my work the way a lot of people do. I feel like the work is hard and can be frustrating and challenging, but but I don't have to go do something that's a passion of mine outside of my work most of the time, because I get to sort of pour that into what I do, and that certainly includes a festival in a huge way. So that, so what inspires me is the people that I already have around me, and then the people that we get to bring in here, and the people that I have grown relationships with down there in LA. It's been really great.
And it's, looking back, like that fact that I've been doing this for 15 years now, and the fact that, it's something that I can say I do. Like, I'm an actor, and I do podcasts and stuff like that too, but like, if people ask me what I do, I say I run a comedy festival in San Francisco. Like, that is what I say I do now.
Yeah, the main thing.
It's, I still hope to be on shows and things, but like, it's not, like, I've been also more concentrating on this now because I love it, and I think it's something that we want to keep doing forever as long as we can, and just glad it's blown up into what it is, and I can't believe it at the same time.
Yes, that kind of, I guess, to wrap up the visionary, and then I also want you to hear like what other projects you guys are working at. I know you did the podcast, and you have, everyone has like various things going on, but the vision for Sketchfest,
for the future,
and maybe it's just the same. Maybe it's just like bigger and it grows, and maybe there's no huge anything to accomplish because it's just going well. It is.
Yeah,
I think that there's something to be said about making it even more interactive. And the reason I say that is, like, we do workshops now more than we ever used to do. We didn't used to do those, but I think that they're really useful. Like, people come in to do an improv workshop or a voice acting workshop with Rob Paulson, or I think we want to probably keep growing that up and stuff. And there's other things out there like South by Southwest, for example, that's very like interactive, and they do music and all sorts of stuff too. And not to say that we would ape that, but like, I think that the festival gets bigger every year, but it also doesn't get bigger in the sense that we're still doing roughly the same amount of shows and stuff over the 3-week period. But now I think it's just about growing it outwards in certain ways, and potentially getting more people involved in certain ways too. Like, as much as we push back against social media and stuff like that, we still don't want people to like take photos and video at the shows and that stuff, because we want it to be like, hey, be at the show, watch the show.
Yeah.
Don't, because like if I go to a concert and I see somebody holding their phone up to record songs for like the entire thing, I'm like, what are you doing? Like, they're playing, like you can type it on YouTube later, and I guarantee you this has been done at 7 other shows.
Right.
But just watch the show.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's ways that, we can continue to sort of embrace it in a non-distracting way and get people more involved from that aspect of stuff too, because social media marketing and people hashtagging us and stuff gets the word out. So finding more ways to be more involved with the people that come to the shows,
and also maybe figuring out a organic way, or sort of a not icky way to get it out to people that maybe don't live in the Bay Area.
Yeah, to have it still be an experience that's special and very us, but can be shared by somebody
whether
in
that's
Kansas.
On
streaming,
computer,
participative,
whether it's a digital thing, or whether it's on television, or whether it's a streaming thing, or something. But so we're open to things like that, but we want it to feel right,
Yeah, I like the fact that you're not forcing stuff. It just kind of
Yeah.
happens. Or you said that before too, just organically, like
Yeah.
the way things are coming. And I'm sure too, it's kind of it is a destination for some people too.
People have started to plan their
Yeah.
vacations around it.
Yeah, for sure.
We over the last few years, we hear about people who request time off from work and fly out here and spend a week or a weekend.
The thing that makes them most angry is that we have 3 separate weekends and shows all the way through, though, because there's
They have to
someone
pick
will
their
write and
favorite
be
half.
like, I really wanted to see this, but it's a different weekend than this, and I can only come once.
or there's 2 shows they definitely want to see that are exactly at the same time
Oh,
across
yeah.
town.
It's
And then
It's
they're
gonna
like,
happen. It happens to us
Yeah.
as watchers, as audiences, not just producers. We have stuff that we can't see because we have to be somewhere else.
Yeah.
Okay, tell me what you're working on besides Sketchfest. Other things. I have your bio, so I can just pull from that.
Yeah, there's a few things. I mean, there's my podcast, Pop My Culture, which is on Nerdist with Vanessa Ragland. We're still doing that. We're going to be cutting back how often we release, though, because of busyness factors.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah, but we're still doing that. And I'm actually starting a sketch comedy podcast with Sam Levine that we're going to put out like 4 times a year because it's going to be very produced. And the thought of doing it more than that stresses me out. So that's in the works.
Understood.
Hopefully I'll get that going a couple months after Sketchfest wraps. And I do a ton of improv and stuff down in LA because I constantly just like to be on stage. I'm running an improv jam on Thursday nights at the West Side Comedy Theater still,
Oh, cool.
which I've been running for like 8 or 9 years. I think that might be about it. Yeah, and then just trying, auditioning and, whatever happens, happens.
Yeah. Jenna, how about you? There's that sound check going on, I think.
Yeah, I mean, my podcast, the JV Club, is one of my favorite things in the world. Shoot season 3 of You're the Worst, which is an FXX show. I'm starting, as soon as I get back, I start shooting something with Geek and Sundry, but I don't know if they've announced what that is yet, but I'm really excited about it. And yeah, I mean, I love doing stuff with other people. I love doing stuff with all the Thrilling Adventure Hour people, and Paula Tompkins and Spontanea Nation is one of my favorite things to do on a regular basis. So yeah, those are some things.
Busy. Good.
Busy.
How about you?
I'll be doing my 5th year as cinema curator for Bonnaroo. It's their 15th year.
I think I'm going to go this year.
You
I've never
should.
been, and I've been wanting to go for like 4 years.
Yeah, they just announced the lineup last night.
Yeah.
So I'll be doing that and raising a 6-year-old girl and with my wife, and then we're then back to Sketchfest. So that'll be.
Thank you so much.